Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us for our program on creating long-lasting habits. I'm Adrienne. I'm from Reston Library, and it's my pleasure to introduce Shabnam Curtis, an integral life coach and the leader of our workshop today.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrienne. And hi, everybody. I hope everyone is having a great day. I'm actually in New York today, and that's why I think probably I have internet issues, but it's a nice day today, and I heard Virginia is also having a nice day. So I hope you're all enjoying it. And thank you so much for joining us here. Yeah, the subject of change and how we can make a change last is something that we all deal with it, right? So I hope this is the last workshop of the year for us, and I hope you can get something out of it. Even though it's like always a process, but I hope this becomes helpful. So meanwhile I'm talking, I'm actually just sending the slides to Adrienne. Oh, look, it's now connecting me, but I'm not trusting it.
Okay. Okay, so you're sending it to my email?
Yes, it's downloading it. My whole computer is very slow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Shabnam Curtis. I'm an integral coach with a focus on adult development. It's my passion. I really like it. I'm the very first person who actually gets a lot of benefit out of it to kind of like connect to life, not to become a better person, but to become more connected to life and to understand life better, all the ups and downs and what life offers us and how we can learn slowly and step by step to transform the challenges to opportunities. Not all of them. Some of them break us, some of them shake us, some of them are breezes, but overall, there is always room and space to become more resilient and more connected to life. So I hope today's workshop is one little part of it that you can take something out of it and improve your connection with your life, which is probably beautiful for everyone. We just need to dig down to see the beauty. Um, does it is it showing me twice now?
Um, Let me see. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, it did for a second. Let me double check.
It is frozen. I'm gonna leave that. It is frozen.
Okay, yeah. Now you're only once.
Okay, good. Okay. Um, I'm gonna start without the presentation, but then meanwhile I try to send it to Adrienne. So if you can just be presented, thank you. But what is the whole process of growth? We are all in our everyday life. We are all our mindsets, behavior, thoughts, feelings, and that's how we connect to life. That's how we connect to other people. And we grow up with certain mindsets. We grow up with certain behavior that we've learned through observation in the society, our family, culture. And then when we are adults, some of us still serve their purpose, and some of the behavior and mindset served the purpose, but there is no more benefit in them, and we notice that they become our like limitation in our life. Sometimes we do notice, sometimes we don't notice, and that's why we want to go through the whole process of change. So if we notice that there are limitations, then we want to dig down to see what's the behavior and what's the mindset behind that behavior, that I might want to change, modify, put a perspective on it. What do I want to do with it? Do I want to exchange it or replace it with a new mindset that causes new behavior? Which means a whole process, a whole change process in our entire body. And that might feel like not really, that might feel new, that like, why do I want to make sure that my entire body feels the change or goes through the change? Believe it or not, we have like how many thousands of muscles that in our body work. It's like basically all the little ones and big ones, they are part of our behavior. So if I'm sitting here talking and there is some amount of a stress because I'm talking to an audience, there are certain muscles that are working in a different way. Well, versus when I'm like just sitting and talking to each one of you separately because I feel more relaxed. Or when I'm sitting next to my daughter versus when I'm sitting next to my mother, I feel differently and I use different muscles. When I am doing, when I'm, let's say like when I'm talking to someone through a conflict, that definitely uses different muscles in my body compared to when I'm talking to someone that, we're just enjoying the process. And we don't even notice it, like there are small muscles, big muscles that we use them all through our body. And of course, the nerve system that creates the whole emotion. If you're connected, we feel the emotions of connection, joy, happiness, contentness. But if our nerve system is aroused by any stressor in the society, we feel like probably that fight or flight in our nerve system. We want to either defend ourselves, or we want to completely ignore something, or add a more pressure, a level of stress, we can even go further down to feel helpless or eventually depressed. So we are using our body through our nerve system, through our muscles, through our heart, of course, the heartbeat, through our breathing, through our lungs. And that's very important. That's why I say we need to, when we want to make a change, we want to make sure it's not just in our head, it's in our entire body. That's part of our growth process. That's where we actually want to feel that like the growth comes out, and we will make a change in ourselves that makes us more connected to life. Now, I want you to think about one change that possibly you want to do in our life, and you perhaps even have done several times, work on it, or it's been in your mind for a long time, but you haven't put it in action. Something that, not a very complex change, but something that you've had it in your mind. And then when we go through the process today, I want you to answer to the questions that we go through, and kind of like make a case study for yourself out of this. It's still not letting me leave that meeting. Okay, now I'm completely out of it. So I want you to think about it for a couple of minutes. What is the change that you've been thinking about for a long time, or you have even worked on it, but it hasn't happened? And yeah, just imagine, if you want to write it down, if you want to just think about it, what is it? What are the mindsets behind it? What is it that you want to change? And meanwhile, I'm going to share the slides with Adrian. It doesn't even want to download. My God, it's still trying to connect to Zoom. That's right.
Okay.
So
I'll let you know when they get here. Are you able to send them? Or,
It's
oh,
like,
yeah, I guess if they don't even want to download it, won't let you send them.
I know. That's okay. It's like all the reports and I can talk through them.
Okay.
Um,
And then
and I
later
don't,
I can send them out to everybody who
yeah,
registered.
and it's because it's all the questions and basically they can really use it like as a kind of like as a checklist.
Mhm.
Really does. Okay, I'm gonna just talk through it. Um, we will use our imagination today. I'm sorry about that. Um, so you've probably heard about several people who worked on change process and offered different solutions. You know, like one of them is probably um, very popular is the Atomic Habits that offers how to change our habits by James Clear. Um, and there are so many other people, psychologists and teachers in the society that have really provided great books and great solutions or great models for change. And the reason that we have several of them is because each one works for some like portion of the population. Not everything works for everybody, so we need that diversity because we are diverse. We understand differently, our perception is different, and we can apply it differently. So it's very important to understand that not there are many good models out there, but not every model can work for me. I need to find one. What I'm talking about today is based on the stages of change that is clinically being used for more than 2 decades for major changes that, like in clinical practices, they use it even for addiction. They use it for like any type of addiction, smoke, alcohol, or even they use it for a depression process. And the most important part is there is like a cycle of change. That's what we know. We need to know that not only there is a cycle of change, there is also several cycles of changes for us at the same time, right? Like let's say at the same time that I'm working on not wanting to make everybody happy, I'm also working on being mindful about when I get tired. I'm also working on another change that like makes me feel more active. So there are several different destinations for me that I want to get to. There are several different goals that I'm following, and each one of them has its own cycle. And when we talk about change, now I want to actually ask if anybody likes to share, what's your definition of change? What do you think a change is, a change in habit, a change in behavior is? If anybody likes to share with your microphone, or even if you want to type it, like what do you think about change in behavior or habits? It can become a little broad. It can become like, oh, I never thought about that. Or we can have different and multiple definitions for it. Does anyone like to share?
Well, I'll say something.
Please.
It's when you don't have to think so hard about doing it. Like if you want to start exercising, well, you have to listen to the alarm clock, get up, get dressed, that sort of thing. That may be a burden or a chore. And then when you get into it, you just hear the alarm and roll out of bed and do it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the basically the destination, the change that we want to create, to be like a second nature in our body, to become.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else likes to share?
I'd like to share.
Please.
Hi. Thank you
Hi.
for sharing. Hello. I've noticed. Oh, I guess we shouldn't use names. I'm sorry. Because they're recording. Sorry. I apologize.
No problem.
So for me, since I retired, I decided that I wanted to have more of a structured, but in some ways, more positive morning routine. And my life really revolved around work. And so I started with the habits that had the least resistance and that was easiest. And for me, was morning movement. And during the pandemic, I didn't leave my house at all, with very few exceptions. So I literally I put a timer on. Well, I had Alexa do it for 5 minutes, and in my PJs with my slippers on, I was walking up and down my hallway for 5 minutes. They felt interminable, but I did it for 46 days, just 5 minutes. I didn't, just got up in the morning, but I did start changing. So the night before, I started putting my clothes, and I was walking up and down, just 5 minutes, which seemed really long. Now I do a 35-minute or a 45-minute walking video to Leslie Sansone every day without fail in the morning. But it took a long time. So I have a routine now that takes about an hour, but it includes meditation, journaling, gratitude, movement, and eating breakfast. I never ate breakfast when I worked. I would eat breakfast on the go. And just as a little side note, I've actually shed about 35 pounds since the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm still kind of chubby. So, but it was just creating the stuff, making time for meals. But bad habits are easier to creep in than positive habits, no matter how. You have to be very vigilant. I found I had to be very vigilant. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like what you are talking about is starting from small steps that we will talk about, the methods, the strategies that you used. How would it help me if I do it 5 minutes at home, if I do the video? We will talk about different strategies that we want to use, that what would help us to create the environment that we want to create, that we want to bring the change a little bit more alive for us. And these are all different parts of the cycle. A lot of time, many of us thought that, it's basically change means action and commitment. And the book that I chose for this stages of change today is called Change for Good. It's by Dr. Prochaska, and I will send it through the slides. I used a lot of their material as resources for today's workshop. And one thing that Dr. Prochaska, through his research, noticed is, first of all, there are a lot of clinics that want to practice or are practicing to help people change, but because they only focus on action and commitment, that's where they fail. So change is more than that. Change is much bigger than that. And the action and the commitment is one place, one stage, just one small place of this whole stage, but it's definitely bigger than that. What Dr. Prochaska in his research learned and started practicing, which actually ended up with another book later that he wrote with his wife, because he with his colleagues, they did the research and they developed the theory that we are going to talk about today. But his wife, as a therapist, practiced this theory with her clients, and they wrote the book together later called Change to Thrive, which has a lot of also good practices in the book that you could use. And then I combined it with the integral theory and adult development theory that hopefully brings everything together in today's workshop. So the whole cycle of change starts with pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is when we actually, not that we don't know we need to change, but we are in denial. Or we even feel like demoralized. We don't want to even think about it, or we don't want to talk about it. An example is like the person who is a workaholic and always misses, let's say, like his children's events at school. And when his wife or his partner faces that, like challenges him, that like you are a workaholic, you are actually missing everything, like all these events with our kids, and then he's like, no, you don't understand. He doesn't want to talk about it. He becomes defensive, he becomes aggressive. And this is like a very simple example, but I'm sure we have seen these examples around. So when we are in that pre-contemplation phase, we are in denial, but other people around us see that there is something that needs to change in us. For example, if you would tell me that, like, oh, sometimes you snap at other people, I would like say, no, it's impossible, because I always consider to be nice to other people. But then when I started practicing mindfulness, and I started with practicing mindfulness, which with a small step, when I was washing the dishes, one time I noticed that I was preparing for guests, I was washing the dishes, I was very tired, and I snapped at my husband, and I caught myself. I was like, oh, yes, I do that. But before, when I wasn't ready for it, if you would tell me, I would not accept it. I would not want to talk about it. So the pre-contemplation is basically where we are not even ready to change. Then after that, we will come to contemplation. Contemplation is when I accept that, okay, yes, something needs to change, but it's still very vague, even if it's smoking, even if it's where, let's say, like being alcoholic, or workaholic, or any major habit, like bad habit that we want to change. In the contemplation, in the contemplation phase, we know that we want to change. We need to change. We're getting to, we want to change, but we might be even a little hopeless that, like, no, I've smoked for 30 years. There's not a possibility, but it's changing. It's like that's another part of the change, that we can actually get ourselves to slowly to a point that, okay, maybe the change is possible. That's the contemplation phase. And there are different strategies that we could use. Some of them that Dr. Prochaska suggests are basically the consciousness arising. So, like if I am, I'm just gonna go with smoking. It's a little more kind of like cliche example, that in the contemplation phase, I get myself to learn more about why is smoking bad, because in the pre-contemplation, I can say, well, no, I know people who smoked and lived 90 years and they were healthy. No, I'm in denial, right? But then in contemplation, I get a little bit more courage to open my eyes to see that, like, oh, actually there is a huge percentage of people who die every year because they smoke. So the contemplation is like getting more and more ready. And in every single stage, we need a lot of self-compassion. We need a lot of we need to be patient with ourselves. I'm going to just go through the phases quick, and then I will explain them each so you have a picture, because if it was with the slides, you will see the cycle actually. So from pre-contemplation, we go to contemplation, then we go to preparation. Preparation is when I actually feel like, okay, I am ready to make the change. How do I want to make the change? And then if I'm a smoker, I start learning about different strategies to change, to make the change. I start calling different organizations who make the change. I start searching online nowadays. I start talking to people who did quit smoking. So I start preparing for the actions that I want to take. And then when I'm ready, when I'm, mentally and physically ready for it, when I feel like if I chose to go to a program that takes 6 weeks and I have to put effort and I have enough vacation time or PTO from my company and enough money to pay for it, and everything at home is under control and managed, when I'm physically and mentally ready and I have the environment, then I go to action. Then when we start the action, we need commitment. But that's like that action and commitment is the only thing that we always think about. But you see how many steps are coming before that to get us to be really starting the action. And it could be small portions of time. It could be really long portions of time. It really depends on the situation, environment, person. So it's very important to not compare ourselves to others, to see what is the process that I'm going through. So we take the action and we get to the results that we want. Now, it doesn't mean that, okay, done because 6 weeks or 6 months passed and I'm actually not smoking anymore. I get to the maintenance phase. The maintenance could be much longer. As far as the smoking, people have reported that after 10 years, they still dreamed about it. They still needed to make sure that they stay away from smoking. And the very small important step in the process that can happen everywhere, especially after action and after maintenance, is relapse. We can always have the relapse, but relapse is not a failure. Dr. Prochaska actually calls it recycle, because that means that we pushed a little too far and our body wasn't ready. We need to recommit. We need to redo it. And that's when we need the most self-compassion for ourselves, right? It's just, if we accept it as part of the process, not as a failure mode, it doesn't mean that we failed. It means we just need a little bit more energy and time and understanding, and then get back to it. So that's basically the whole cycle. Now, there are different strategies or methods that can be used for each part of cycle. Overall, based on the research, Dr. Prochaska suggests that, like, for pre-contemplation and contemplation, there are consciousness raising, that you basically like allow yourself to learn more about this whole thing, that let's say like maybe smoking is a little bit easier to learn about it, and consciousness, the awareness raising is a little bit easier in this time of life that we are living. But let's say like something like, I want to say something like the way that we communicate, our conversation skills. Although there is a lot of resources out there, but the lack of communication is what's the most disturbing thing in our lives, everywhere in our lives, at home, at work, with friends, everywhere. And there is not really enough there is not enough awareness, let alone self-awareness. still for the society. So it might take even longer to really understand what is the lack of communication that I may have. The social liberation, that could be another strategy, is like, you know, nowadays, social media, we have a lot of awareness through social media. However, we have to be careful because there are all types of qualities of awareness and information in social media. What is it that we are absorbing? We don't want to get a lot of mixed messages. We want to get the message that has a quality in it, that has a substance in it. I personally usually stick to following the teachers who are working on certain theories and research studies. And then I'm very careful about other people who can offer a lot, because I've seen not good quality information out there. And sometimes people offer their own personal experience, and we have to consider that this is only one person's personal experience. It's not based on any study or research. So we have to really make sure that that social liberation that is bringing to everybody, that you don't have to be, let's say, like, you don't have to be a people pleaser, how it is offered, and what part of it I'm taking and absorbing, and how do I want to act on it for my own life. There are other strategies that we can use. When we get to preparation and action, we can use like even the emotional arousal or the self-reevaluation. What does it mean? The emotional arousal is I'm in the contemplation phase. I'm a smoker, and I get diagnosed by lung cancer. You know, and they are like, well, it's a stage 1. We're gonna take care of you. But that's when I have this emotional arousal that, like, I gotta quit. I have to get to a commitment. How do I do that? So I get to preparation, and then I get to action. Or I see a loved one who died because of smoking. Then that's like another emotional arousal. Or different types. Now, these are just 1 or 2 examples. The self-reevaluation is, let's say, who am I with this current habit? If I'm a people pleaser, what amount of dignity and agency am I losing from my own self and life to please everybody around me? How much stress am I putting on myself to please everybody around me? You see, like, those type of self-reevaluation, that, like, where is my authenticity? Where is my agency? Where do I feel powerful or powerless? So the habits that make me feel powerless, make me feel like lack of autonomy, agency, that's the self-reevaluation. Do I want to change that? And that is a very important part, usually, for a person to start getting to preparation and action phase. And then, of course, like I mentioned, commitment is a very important part of preparation and action. Change is not easy. Change is hard. Change is hard because when we have a habit, like I said, every single part of our body works to get us to, you know, stand like a people pleaser, or stand with dignity, or stand, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, it involves a lot of different parts of our lives that we have to untangle and replace it with the new habits and the new mindset. And speaking of that, another strategy that you could use, especially in action and maintenance phase, is replacing it. You know, like, if I have a habit of eating chips all the time and I know that it's not good for me, can I replace it with some other crunchy thing? If I'm a workaholic, I don't want to replace it with coming home and feeling like lonely or binge watching TV. I want to replace it with another habit that makes me actually alive and doesn't take me back to that feeling like work is giving me all the purpose to make me back to that being workaholic. So that's another strategy that we want to replace it, but we want to replace it with a healthy habit. It's like some people quit alcohol but start smoking. It's just like or like from being workaholic, they go home and they start eating a lot of carbs and unhealthy food. So it's like what are we replacing? And another strategy is very important. Like you can use reward a strategy for yourself, never punishment. Punishment may make a little change for a very short time, but it doesn't last. But reward is very important. That like how can we help ourselves with like if I did this, can I if I didn't eat unhealthy food the whole week, can I reward myself with something to do something that I like, to spend money something that I like? Let's say I would spend money on going dancing somewhere, something that really gives me joy, with bringing that replacement, the healthy habit replacement in it. Another thing is the one thing that is especially for I've seen it for alcoholic people who are quitting, like the AA meetings, relationships, but it can be for anything, any type of habit. If I have a supportive relationship, if I have someone, even one person who can help me to stay with that commitment that I need to have in the environment that I need to build for myself, that's very important, because we human, we really live and thrive through healthy connections, and relationships can be very helpful for us. Another strategy is basically like an environmental control. It's important that, like, if I am quitting, let's say, like, if I'm quitting carb, I should not buy carb and put it at home, right? There is an example that, like, a person who was quitting alcohol, he put one bottle of alcohol liquor in at home, and he was like, "Oh, I'm actually challenging my own willpower." And sure enough, he relapsed, and it was like a big relapse that it was not easy to come back. So these are different strategies, and when you see the slides, you'll see that how you can use different strategies on different phases. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to offer questions. That's why I was asking you if you can think of a change that you can, like, kind of like use today's workshop as a practice workshop. You can even write about it, and I will try to be slow so you can think about it a little bit. So these are questions that I would want to offer, and you want to think about it, that how would it work for you? And then hopefully it helps to realize that a change can be difficult, but it's doable when we do it right. So let's say that we are out of pre-contemplation, we are in the contemplation phase, and we have accepted that there are habits, there are behaviors, patterns of behaviors that we want to change. Now, the very first question is, what is that habit or the behavior that you are doing is defending you from? Let's say, like, if I want to please everybody, what is it, how is it protecting me? And based on that, what is the mindset behind it? So as far as me feeling like, oh, it's been a while that I've been working on it, I'm probably more in the action phase. But when I was in the contemplation phase, and if I was asked, what is the protection that people pleasing brings you, I would probably immediately say, I don't want to hurt anybody. I've been taught to be nice to everybody, to say no, because saying no hurts people. You see the mindset behind it? Now I see that's a wrong mindset. And it doesn't mean that I want to hurt people. It means that me saying no, sometimes me saying yes to everything, sometimes hurt people. So I wasn't actually protecting anybody. It was just a wrong mindset. I hope it makes sense. I just want everyone to have a few seconds to think about it. So now that you feel, you probably know, and what we are practicing today in like a few minutes, it's probably years for some of us. It has been for years for many changes for me. So you can go back to it. You can take your time for each stage. But we're just kind of like shortening it to a few minutes today to show what it is. And if you feel like you have an awareness of, okay, I know what's the mindset behind it, I know what's the protection I'm getting out of it, what am I doing that that I keep going back to it? Why do I keep going back to it? What is pushing me towards it? What is the concern, the fear behind it? Like for me, it was, like I said, not hurting people, but it was also the fear of not being belonged to certain communities, to the fear of losing people, because if I hurt them, then they would not want to be with me, the fear of loneliness, and the fear of basically like being ostracized. So those were the fears behind it. And what I'm talking about is years of work. So you may not grab it very quickly, but just start thinking about it. And then even if you can later journal on it, just a few seconds today, what is the concern? What is the fear behind it that you keep going back and doing that habit? Now, the strategies, like the 6-7 strategies that we talked about, well, the very good ones can be consciousness rising and also emotional arousal. So see what, and even reevaluation. Journal on it, contemplate on it, the word contemplation, to see how much more awareness you need to really grasp this change and the need for the change. What is behind it according to those questions that we just talked about? So after contemplation, we go to preparation. We start preparing for the change. When we start preparing for the change, we want to see that, okay, in the contemplation phase, I figured out what is the behavioral pattern that I want to change, what's behind it, how it's limiting me, what are the fears and concerns. Now in the preparation phase or stage, you want to have a vision. You want to create a goal for yourself. You want to see where you want to go. Where is the destination? Then what is the new habit that I want to make? And to have that new habit, what's the mindset behind it? So for me, It's been basically like, well, learning that actually saying yes to everything can hurt people, and the impossibility of pleasing everyone, and just putting so much stress, that's what needs to change. So what, and it needs to change to, I want to be authentic, and I want to be very careful of not hurting other people. But there is also a difference between hurting people intentionally or not intentionally, or just offending people. I was afraid of talking about my opinion or saying no because I thought I was hurting people, but I wasn't. I was just maybe offending someone else because my opinion and the other person's opinion were clashing. That's not hurting other people. So these are the new mindsets that I want to bring. And the new behavior is, I want to make sure that I can say no at the right place based on my perception. I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel bad about it. And I want to feel more of agency. I want to be more authentic with more agency and autonomy. So this is the new behavior. And believe it or not, it even impacts how I stand up, how I sit down, the tone of my voice. And a very interesting part for me was I was always observing it in my mother, and I didn't like it in her. But then I learned that it was a projection. Not that she didn't have it. I had learned it through observation from her and from the culture that we all grew up. But it was very interesting that it was just a mirror to me, something that I was resenting. And even when I think about it, like her tone of voice, or the way that she was kind of like crouching to talk to people, to like, oh, I'm all yours, that feeling, I didn't know I had it too. So basically the new behavior that I want to have is the way that I'm presenting myself, the way that I'm actually present in the moment, with kind of like having an attention to myself and to the other person and to the environment. And that's a heck of practice. I've been doing it for a long time, and it's still going on. It's not feeling guilty about saying no or being assertive or even setting your boundaries. It's just like a long process. So preparation and then action, it takes really like the longer times. But in the preparation, we want to envision what we want to do. That's basically part of preparation. So can you envision? Can you imagine what is about the change that you want to make? What's the new you? What would you look like? What would you present yourself when that change happens? Just a few seconds. Imagining yourself with the current pattern of behavior, with the current habit, and the new one, because our body learns through contrast. Can you imagine that? And as part of the preparation, what are the resources that I can use? Who are the people who could help me with this, who understand me and can support me with this around me? The resources, what do I need to learn more? the programs, you know, like, do I want to have a therapist? Do I want to have a coach? Do I want to attend some, programs that help mindfulness, or self-growth? There are different options. Or do I want to talk to a specialist? Do I need a consultant? Do I need to talk to people who have done it? Do I need to read certain books? What are the resources for me? Including people and relationships, meaningful relationships that you have. Now, if you want to think about how do I feel when the new habit happens, when I have the new habit, when it's like someone was sharing in the beginning of our call that like it becomes our second nature. How do I feel like that? Can you imagine yourself there? And then another part is, what could stop you from it? What are the stoppers on your way? You know, the fear, for me, the fear of hurting people, the fear of people not liking me. So it would jump me back. It would basically like catapult me back to becoming a people pleaser again. It still does. I'm not saying it doesn't. And when I'm saying it still does, that's the relapse, right? But then when it happens, that's when I need to have self-compassion. That, okay, maybe there was too much pressure. Maybe the environment was a new environment. Maybe I wasn't ready for it. What was it? And we get to that. I have a few questions for that. But the relapse can happen all the time, to be dragged to the old habit. Another question you can ask for preparation is, how do I create a safe environment for myself to be able to create the habit? Like for me is to start my small step with people who I'm more comfortable with, to be more assertive, to talk about my opinion, to say no when I don't want something happen. And I want to stay in that environment a little bit longer, until I have more neuron paths to get ready for harsher environments for me. And then when we get to action, to the phase that if we are ready to take the action, which commitment is the most valuable strategy here. You know, we can call it willpower, commitment. Action is probably the most difficult phase or stage of change. We want to see how we can set goals that are very clear. You know, you can use so many different methods to set a goals. them are like SMART goals, SMART, that stands for different, like, make it measurable. I don't recall everything, all the abbreviations, but the goal that is measurable, that is tangible, that has steps that you can take and say, I did it, and then what's the next step? It's very important to make a clear path when you start taking the action. And of course, we start with a small step, and then we start to see how it works. We kind of like put a little bit of our foot in the water to see how it works, and then gradually go to the water. If there is relapse, we deal with it. If there is an observation, if there is journaling, we can just constantly reevaluate ourselves to see how we feel, how much we have come to closer to our goal. We can even reevaluate our goal. Is the goal achievable? Did I really set a goal that is realistic? Or is it too big, or is it too small? We can even reevaluate our goal. But the very important thing is, what is the purpose and meaning that the new pattern brings to your life? If it's just because I told my husband that you need to quit smoking because it's not good for you, that probably is not a meaning, an enough deep purpose. I need to understand what's the purpose and the meaning behind this new goal. Achieving this new goal is very important to connect it, to couple it with purpose and meaning. And during the action time, when it gets hard, to constantly remind yourself in your own way. You want to just put it on the mirror, you want to have it on your phone, you want to repeat it as a mantra, in any way that would work for you. But what is the purpose and the meaning that make you want to be this new pattern part of your life and you? Some of the observations through our action phase is, how do I feel when I do the new habit, when I practice the new habit? Or even before I practice the new habit. You know, like, let's say, like, public speaking is something that you want to create for yourself. That's the change. How do I feel before that? How is it changing over time through my practice? What am I doing to feel less anxious? What are the little steps that I take? How do I desensitize myself? And then when you actually create, when you imagine when you have created the habit, what are the feelings that you have? There are probably a lot more desirable feelings, more pleasurable feelings about it. Now, there is one thing that is very important, and I know there are a lot of resources out there. It's very important that when we even get to the action phase and we constantly have relapse, you may want to have some observation about it and even talk to a professional. One important thing is trauma. Trauma, if we have unhealed, trapped trauma in our body from the past, it can easily stop us from any type of change. Usually it doesn't even take us to action. It even make us stop in pre-contemplation or contemplation. But sometimes we get to action, and then it's very frustrating when you constantly commit and recommit, but you relapse. Then that's not that you are a bad person. It's not that you are a lazy person. There is you have to do the root cause. You have to see what is behind it, what is hidden behind it in your subconscious that stops you from that change, from that commitment. There is not such a thing that we are bad, or we don't have willpower, or we don't have commitment, or we have commitment issues. There is something behind it. And it can be even like something that you might not even feel related, a trauma that is not even related. But believe it or not, our traumas or our entire life is so interconnected that some sound like unrelated traumas, they impact very different parts of our lives. So let's say you took a while, some says 6 weeks, some says 6 months, through practice and commitment and relapse. And you got to the point that like we were talking about, I forgot the lady's name, but like we were talking about that, like when the alarm clock goes off, I don't feel like resentment, and I can just roll out of the bed and go. But I'm still not like, it's still not the second nature, but I feel good about it, and I'm doing it. I'm doing, let's say, like 7 out of 10 times. What is it there that I can do to help myself to bring it to as a second nature, as part of me? That's when we are in the maintenance phase. In the maintenance phase, we want to deepen that practice. So we want to practice until it becomes second nature and we don't even remember doing it. One thing that I've been doing was like stretching, because my type of job is always like sitting, and I wanted to have, they call it active sitting. So I always wanted to stretch. Now I do it without even remembering, but it took me a long time to take note, to remind myself, to put alarm for myself. But now I feel like I don't have to do it. It has become second nature. So we are basically changing all those neuron paths, and the paths are becoming stronger and stronger and stronger until they automatically work. We don't have to push them. We don't have to work on the strength of them. They just work on their own. That's basically what happens in our body for a new habit. In the maintenance phase, we really want to observe. We really want to do the reevaluation. We still want to make sure that we are still aware of it. It hasn't become second nature. It hasn't become subconscious. We are still aware of it. And how long does it take for us to just do it, practice it consciously, without judgment on ourselves, like without saying, oh my God, I've been practicing this for more than a year. I still feel like I have to motivate myself. Do the reward, the reward strategy. It helps a lot. The environmental control, it helps a lot during that maintenance phase. And then you can think of creating that environment for yourself, appreciating yourself, celebrating the steps that you've taken. Every single step, celebrate it. Tell yourself that I can. Use your strengths, and strengthen your strengths. And then as far as relapse, when it happens, like I said, it's very important to have that self-compassion and patience. But in order to do a root cause analysis that, okay, what happened? Was I in a new environment? Did I push too much? Did I have two different changes that were bigger than my capability, my abilities? Did something outside from the environment trigger me? Triggers are very tricky, they're very sneaky, and they can drain our energy. So when something else is draining my energy, then there is not enough energy for me to work on the change that I'm working on. So we have to be very cautious of it. We have to be very aware of it. You know, if you remember, if anybody had a chance to look at the emotional awareness, there's this concept of body budget. Body budget is me being aware of how much I can do at the moment. If I didn't have good enough sleep, if I had a stressor and I feel distressed, if I didn't have enough food or the right food, if I didn't get rest, if, you know, what was it that, like, how much is the body budget that I have at the moment? And the more we being mindful about it, help us to plan our day and our activities more realistically, without doubting ourselves that, like, oh, I have to be the most heroic person in the world. No, we don't. We have a body budget and we have to work with our body budget, and that is being a hero. Honestly, nowadays it's been like, I'm taking actually a class on heroine's journey, which is like another version of hero's journey, but this is with Maureen Murdoch created this heroine's journey cycle, and the most important part is, like, we're all pushed to do more than we can. This is like cultural, and if you read the history, you see how industrial revolution made kind of like working hard valuable, but at the same time, there is so much energy in our body, and when we push it, then we get to a point that we feel burnout. But at that point, we might not even know what we want to do. So it's very important to see what is our body budget and plan based on that. And that's when the good changes happen, because we realistically plan for it. And that's about, like, to kind of like do an analysis on your relapse, on our relapse of all habit. So overall, if I want just to have, I wish I had a picture here, but that I have, that I see. But, you know, we go from pre-contemplation to contemplation to preparation, action, and then maintenance. And Dr. Prucheska actually has the last stage that is called termination. Termination is when it's second nature, when you don't even think about it anymore. That change is like part of you. You don't even remember how it was before, you know. That's the termination phase. Not every one of us get to the termination phase. A lot of time, because of everything that is rooted in us, we probably stay in the maintenance phase for a long time, and that's fine. Depends on the behavior, depends on the type of change that we want. The maintenance phase can be very long, and it needs a lot of patience. And I can't say it enough, patience and self-compassion. But yeah, that's basically to see where we are in the process of change, where it's, you know, kind of like bring a vision that what is the next step that I can do We don't want to jump into the action. We don't want to skip any of these phases because it makes it pretty impossible to be successful in creating that change that we want. I just would like, I know I talked a lot. I would like to know if there's any question. We can definitely stop the recording and see if anybody likes to have any comments, thoughts, or question.
Okay, all right, I'll go ahead and stop it now.
Thank you.